Live, back in action, attacking your speakers from the field to the bleachers. This is the Power 32 podcast, and it is the hour of power over here as we are ready to rock and roll. We got some fresh news to break for you guys that I'm sure you heard already, so if you want, chime on in the comments section. I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about. We'll get there, but before all that, say hello to my friend and my co-host, my partner over here, David Dale, Mr. Primetime 313, baby.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
All good, man. All good. How you feeling today?
Feeling all right, man. We had a couple of really hot days up here in Michigan. It was like 86, 87 degrees. Now it's down to about 68 to 70, which is a little bit more to my liking. The sun kind of makes itself absent today, so it was a little dreary today. But I'm it's not like we're Seattle where it's like that 350 days a year.
Geez, man, I can't imagine.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's why the suicide rate is so high up there. It's freaking depressing. They got to do something about that. Build a dome over the city or something. I don't know. Do something. Say what's up to McNiners in the house. My man,
what's up, McNiner? What's going on, my man?
Drafted a hell of a fantasy team. We did our mock draft over there. That was fun. McNiner, we're going to get into a bunch of stuff today. We got to start with what we've been avoiding to talk about for a long time. We've tried not to mention his name, but now it is just right there. Bada bing, bada boom. In the news, here it is. Aaron Rodgers officially not officially, but will be official, a Pittsburgh Steelers. And Prime, I mean, your initial reactions to what is perhaps the worst kept secret in the NFL over the past, 35 years or something like that, because we knew this was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. But he's going to sign before minicamp next week so we can get in there and practice and play with these new guys.
Mike, I guess, Jason, the first question I would ask you is why? If my philosophy, and I've stayed on the show a couple of times, is when you're going after a guy, when you're swooning over a guy like this, and how much better does he make you? And right now, you got the Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, you have the Broncos and
Chargers.
Yeah. So at the very best, and the possible return of the Cincinnati Bengals. At best, does this make you just the sixth or seventh best team in the conference? And my biggest thing is that it's just for 1 year. So to me, it's going to turn into a dog and pony show. They're going to question all year. Does Aaron Rodgers resign? Does he retire? This, that, and the other. And I was talking to one of my friends today at work, saying maybe that Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers retire together at the end of the season, because I don't see Pittsburgh being some that one player that puts them over the top. There's so many other teams that are better than the Pittsburgh Steelers, at least on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm just trying to figure out why 80 days this saga's been going on with him. And if I'm a Pittsburgh fan or a sports fan like we are, I guess the biggest question I have is why, and I'd love to hear your take on that as to why you think Pittsburgh felt that this was so outside the obvious, not having a quarterback. This is going to put you in the same situation next year. You're not going to have a quarterback unless you do this dance with him all over.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what you think.
What I can go back to is they weren't in love with anybody in the draft this year, whether it be Shedeur Sanders or name anybody who was up there. Jackson Dart, they could have got, that he was available to them at that pick right there, but they didn't take it. The Giants ended up taking him at 25. So you go back, you think to that. They weren't ready to move on. They draft O.J. Howard real late, or whatever his name is,
Will Howard.
Will Howard. O.J. Howard's a tight end, a former tight end in the NFL. Will Howard. So it's up to Damian Lee saying Aaron Rodgers will be the reason Mike Tomlin gets fired next year. God, I hope that's not the reason. I mean, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers could get Mike Tomlin fired, but the thing is, they weren't going to do any better than what they had. They got Mason Rudolph in there, Skylar Thompson, and it's a joke what they have. Not that Aaron Rodgers is going to put these guys over the top. We know that's not going to happen. But they didn't want to look like punks going into the season. And I think that's why they were desperate for him. My question is why it took so long. And I'm not going to sit here and ponder all that, why it took so long, because look, it's already done now and it's finally happened. Don't understand that part of it, but I understand the connection. And, Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers already had this relationship. So I totally understand it getting in there. As we hear from Tyler McGurk, who say what's up to him, He still believes that Aaron
Tough
Rodgers,
tie.
it's not a popular opinion, but he still thinks that he's got a year left of really good football in him. And you know what? He just might. But the thing is, Dave, about this team, the Pittsburgh Steelers roster right now is constructed. It's not even better than what the Jets offense was last year. You got Jalen Warren at running back, along with a rookie and Caleb Johnson, so you don't know what you're going to get. You did pick up DK Metcalf, but George Pickens now gone, so that makes Robert Woods, who we joked last week saying that he's been around since 1973, he's your second wide receiver, along with Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, Calvin Austin, guys that you really haven't heard of before. So you could go out and get an Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen. Does that make a difference?
And we all know, the quarterback position is the most important position on the field. I get it. My whole thing is that with Aaron Rodgers, and I'll repeat this, I just don't think that it may, like you said, their offense right now, as it stands, isn't still, are they going to struggle to put up 23, 24 points a game?
Yeah.
You look at some of the teams just in their division alone. Cleveland is, for as bad as they are, they still got a really good defense. We know what the Ravens defense is. We know what the Bills defense is. I mean, Bengals, well, the Bengals might have a little bit more luck against them.
Hey,
they're going to struggle scoring.
They're going to struggle scoring against Cleveland. I mean,
exactly. And I'm just trying to figure out, and I you hit it right on the head as far as not wanting to go into the season looking vulnerable and looking like they didn't try to do something to upgrade the quarterback position. I get it 100%, but at the same time, it made you, to me, look desperate. This is like the Browns or the Colts or the Raiders or somebody, I'll probably just say like the Browns or the Colts or, some bottom-feeding team that needs the attention or that needs the ratings or that needs a reason to put asses in the seat. Pittsburgh Steelers, for crying out loud. And you let Aaron Rodgers, of all people, do this dance again. This time with you, and I know there were some people who were openly critical of the way he was dangling with the Jets and allowed him to do this as the Steelers. I just think the Steelers, from a tradition, a legacy standpoint, you didn't need to let Aaron, of all people, knowing the way he's been, especially over the last 2-3 years. I don't know. I know Mason Rudolph's not the answer, but my question is this just something to keep Tomlin's above 500 streak going? Because I can't see this really being anything significant as we move deeper into the season.
No, and I can't see them having another plan going forward for this year. And Aaron Rodgers is not going to be around next year, most likely. This is going to be a one-year contract. And again, it's the best option that they probably did have out there because he can step into any offense and play ball, there's no doubt. But again, they're not going to be anything big. We just went over their core over there with Jalen Warren and Calvin Austin. And you got DK Metcalf, but they don't have enough. And they have a decent offensive line, not a really good one, not a really poor one. So they're a team that, with the defense that they have, they only need to put up probably 20 to 23 points a game. But I don't know if they can actually do that. I'm not sure they can. And you said it right there. I'm not sure they can put up that amount of points. I really didn't. Say what's up to Steve-O over here.
Steve-O.
What he's saying, you shit, the Steelers had two quarterbacks and put themselves in a situation, not Aaron. The Steelers did it to themselves. You're absolutely right. They let Aaron dictate this. And everything would have looked a lot better if Rodgers would have just signed 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And why he didn't again, I don't know. But we are where we are. And now he is the quarterback going forward. And now there are expectations because he is quarterback. But for any realistic, quote-unquote, expert out there, or anybody who knows the NFL, knows that this team really isn't going to go far. They don't have enough on offense. But their defense, man, is absolutely stacked. So is there a chance they can play ball control offense? Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over, and you have Cameron Hayward and T.J. Watt. You bring in Derek Harmon, Alex Highsmith. Let me get their thing up there. Darius Slay, Minka Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter. I mean, they have a sick freaking defense. So maybe the idea is Rodgers, don't screw it up. Just try to put up 17, 20 points a game.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that, but I think it's going to, it's been, Pittsburgh historically, especially over like the last handful of years or so, really struggled to put up points. And right now, we know that this is a league right now where, offense is everything right now. And I get it. Their defense is like an all-star, all-pro defense, just from name value alone. They got a lot of really good guys on that defense, but it's going to come down to, like you said, they'll probably just try to keep it close. Win a lot of 20-17 games.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at some of the offenses that they're going to be going up against, this season with their schedule alone, it's going to be tough, man. For even with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, and I know Ty mentioned earlier that he thinks that Aaron Rodgers has one more good year left. But what does that equate to? That's my whole thought process with this is that, okay, let's say best case scenario, Aaron Rodgers throws for 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 3 picks. What does that get you? What does that get you overall in the conference? Does it make you a Super Bowl contender? Absolutely not, because there's so many teams. There's at least 3 or 4 teams that are head and shoulders above what the Steelers are right now. And with the defense like that, though, Jay, to your point, they would be able to catch lightning in a bottle and maybe make a playoff run. But does that playoff run involve 2 playoff wins, or you go 10-7, 11-6, get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, and all of this is for nothing, and you go into next season, like I said, still needing a quarterback, but then Aaron Rodgers' option is probably off the board.
And then you're drafting around 21, 22, 23, and then it's like, you're not going to get one of the top guys, so you need to trade up, as we hear again from Tyler saying Rodgers didn't want to go to OTAs, and I don't blame him. And if he was signed, it's all they would want to have asked the players about. So that's what he had read Tyler saying over there. I'm sure Rodgers, look, he's 41 years old. He doesn't want to go to freaking OTAs. And regarding the Steelers and the schedule, look, don't tell me that, again, the NFL knew that Rodgers was going to the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers because they play at the Jets in week 1. So there you go right there. So they got the Jets. They play the Seahawks, the Patriots, not so terrible, the Vikings and the Browns. Then they got the Bengals. We'll see how good their defense is. Packers they play. So the Packers' other former team comes to town, and they play in Pittsburgh. They got the Colts, the Steelers, the Bears, the Bills they played. Again, the Ravens a couple of times. The Dolphins, your Lions are in there. Yeah. So it's not the hardest schedule. It's not a murderer's row schedule. It's really not. The division is pretty tough.
And but there's probably, I mean, just from the teams that you named, plus their division games, there's probably 6 or 7 very losable games in there. Like I say, best case scenario I'm seeing for them is maybe 10-7. Maybe they make you split with your division, or you hopefully you don't get swept by the Ravens or the Bengals, which I could easily see that happening. But you're hoping, if you're Mike Tomlin right now, that you can just put it all together for 1 year. I honestly, my 51-49, I'm saying that this is probably Tomlin's last year with the Steelers, especially if this doesn't work out. And we know that Aaron Rodgers is going to just play one and done. But I'm if I'm a Steeler fan right now, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm looking at all this from the 30,000-foot view, and I'm just wondering, okay, we signed Rodgers, we got a really good defense, but we let one of our best offensive weapons go. So had he had Pickens and Metcalf to throw to, I would be singing a totally different tune. But the fact now that, teams can isolate Metcalf, double him or do whatever. Freiermuth is okay. He's not a top 5 tight end by any means, but but Aaron Rodgers, who knows? He may turn him into another Mark Chmura or, I forgot who else he had with Green Bay. But it's going to be, Pittsburgh is probably going to be the team to watch this season, strictly because of the Aaron Rodgers situation.
Little Bubba Franks action coming
there
out. There you go.
Bubba.
Oh, man. Poor Mason Rudolph. He's so pissed right now. He thought he was actually going to start, but no. Joke's on you, buddy. You're not playing unless Rodgers does go down, and that's a whole other story. But there you go. All right, so Aaron Rodgers on Pittsburgh, as we thought. We're not going to go crazy over it. Steve was saying Pickens and Metcalf, no quarterback could control either of them. Well, he's only got to deal with one now. And, yeah, that's Dak Prescott's issue over there. And, man, oh, man. So Pittsburgh, just look, they're like middle of the road. Aaron Rodgers is maybe the, 8th, 9th, 10th best quarterback in the conference, because you got Mahomes, you got Lamar, you got Allen, you got Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. I mean, that's 5 right there. And I'm probably leaving out. Why am I thinking right now? But there's got to be better quarterbacks out there. I'm not thinking of
Bo Nix.
Maybe Bo Nix. Maybe C.J. Stroud, possibly. I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. Anyway, it will be interesting. One of the quarterbacks in the AFC that is not better than Aaron Rodgers is going to be out with a shoulder injury, and that is Indianapolis quarterbacks Anthony Richardson. He was already going to be in a battle with Daniel Jones, of all people. Now Daniel Jones will clearly have the lead in this whole thing, as he'll have more time to participate and play during minicamp. When Anthony Richardson comes back, I don't know. How big a deal of this is this to you regarding his career, if you think he even has much of a career to offer to the NFL?
Well, we kind of, on this show, we kind of razz Anthony Richardson a little bit, and I've said that if he lost his job to Daniel Jones, he would probably never get another starting quarterback opportunity ever for the rest of his career. He had, I think that's the same shoulder that he had surgery on in college. So injuries are nothing new to him. I didn't think he was going to have the starting quarterback position anyway. If you base it just on ability and merit, I think Daniel Jones would have beat him out. I don't know if the Colts were ready to give up on him totally, but they brought Daniel Jones in to kind of give him, that sense of competition, let him know, hey, look, man, your job's not secure. We're going to bring somebody in, even if it is Daniel Jones. It's not like they brought in Carson Wentz or, somebody maybe on a level or two above Daniel Jones. But this is a make or break year for Anthony Richardson. This is the worst possible thing that could have happened to Anthony Richardson right now, when he's in a prove-it year, in all of our opinion, I could say. And this is, if he doesn't make it this year, where does he go from here? I mean, at best, he'd be a career backup. But where does he go from here if he can't play, or if he's able to play and still loses his job to Daniel Jones? Where does he go?
Yeah, you know what the funny thing is? With a guy with his athletic gifts, there'd probably be a team out there that would say, you know what, I can fix this guy. I can turn him into an NFL professional quarterback. Let me give him a chance. And there are offensive coordinators and coaches out there like that would probably give him a chance because he's got all those gifts. But in the totality of it, yeah, Anthony Richardson, it's not like he just got here. He's been around now for a minute. So it is a prove-it year if he's going to play. And if he doesn't play, that's a whole nother thing, man. I mean, now you're injured. Now you're not going to get your contract money. You're not going to make your money because this is the year to do it. If you want to make money, you need to prove it this year. That's another thing. And he may not get paid, man. He may be a backup, and that may be it. So that's unfortunate for that kid. But that's what you get for drafting a guy who played 1 year, had 15 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, just had that raw ability. I mean, that was like trying to catch like Josh Allen lightning in a bottle, but wasn't the same thing, man. It just isn't working out that way. And you know what? Maybe it's partly the organization. I don't want to harp too much on it, but it could be where he is right now. Things aren't perfect in Indianapolis, and obviously not that great right now with your Mercedes being gone. May he rest in peace. But before we get to our MVP candidates, I wanted to run this by you, man. This is ridiculous. I'm looking at the highest average per year paid quarterback. All right, average salary per year. You ready for this? Number one. Do you know who number one is?
Per year?
Yeah, per year.
Are we talking salary cap hit, or are we talking salary just
straight up
money in
salary.
My pocket?
What? Yeah, money in the pocket. What they make?
Joe Burrow?
It's not Joe Burrow. He's close. He's number 3. It's Dak Prescott, a guy who never came close to a Super Bowl, making $60 million a year. After that is Josh Allen. Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love are all at $55 million a year. So Dak Prescott leads it all. If you notice about Allen, Burrow, Lawrence, and Love, none of them have won a Super Bowl. Neither have 6 through 10. Tua Tagovailoa, 53. Brock Purdy, 53. Jared Goff, 53. Justin Herbert, 52.5. And Lamar Jackson, 52. None of these guys have have won a Super Bowl. Now, maybe Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are close. Lamar Jackson, they're going to redo his contract. Yeah. I think he resets the market. He'll be the highest average per year quarterback. But a name that's not even on there is Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
What's happening here?
Exactly. And I don't think it's one of those, we talked a lot over the years, the chatter with Brady was that Brady took less money to make the team better. Yeah, I don't think we've ever heard those conversations about Patrick Mahomes. Not saying that he wouldn't, but he was the highest paid for that hot second when he signed that 250 million, or no, I'm sorry, the $500 million,
yeah, it was like
$500 million deal.
Yeah.
And then it was just like boom, 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 boom. Everybody just surpassed him to where he's not, what is he, like 12th or 13th? Didn't they just give Stafford like 50 million too?
I think they bumped up his salary.
Yeah, so
another 2-year
Patrick
deal.
Mahomes, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the best quarterback in the league right now, public opinion, is not even a top 12, top 10, top 12 highest paid quarterback in the league. And then you look at all the guys above him who are aspiring to be and accomplish what he's accomplished in his career. Even a third of that, give those guys, give Burrow and Allen and Lamar just one Super Bowl, and I think the opinion changes about those guys. But it's crazy to think that Patrick Mahomes is not amongst the top 8-10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, and it's because Steve was bringing out a good point over here, and he's right, because he signed a 10-year contract for $500 million, which makes him a $50 million a year player. But so overall he had a big, but unbelievable, man. And I want to get to Damian over here, bringing up a very interesting little trade possibility, wondering if the Steelers are patient. Would they accept the trade of Brandon Ayuk for a draft pick? I don't know that the 49ers would do it, even though they're paying him a lot of money right now because they're so thin at wide receiver. But then again, I mean,
I like that.
It depends how the season goes. Let's say Pittsburgh's actually having a decent season and they're in there for a wild card spot, and the 49ers are falling off, then you know what? I can see it happening, but not before the year starts.
Well, and here's an interesting one, because up here, they're not 100% sold on re-signing Jameson Williams. So do the Lions maybe make a move for a couple of draft picks, maybe a third or fourth or just a third or something like that, and make sure that they get something for Jameson Williams if indeed they don't sign him? I know Dan Campbell was up here a couple weeks ago talking about all the expectations they have for him, but sometimes it's not necessarily you're saying we expect big things from him because you do. You're saying that so that you can set the bar so high that there's no way that he can accomplish what you need him to in order to keep him there. I think he came into his own last year, but I still think, a guy like that may be on the table for the Steelers. They do need another receiver, but like we were talking earlier, I think the biggest thing for them going forward is what they're going to do at the quarterback position next year.
Yeah, better crop of quarterbacks coming out next year from what I hear. I'm not the biggest on college guys, but that's the word around town. So, if they want to make themselves available, then maybe getting Aaron Rodgers wasn't the best idea if you get to shoot for mediocrity. I don't know. But anyway, the theme of the show today that we're going for, because, it's the off season and we're looking for stuff. You got to have things to go to. You got to have things in your hip pocket once in a while. And we came up with our top NFL MVP candidates going into 2025. So we're going to get into that right now. Definitely want to hear your guys' comments on that. That'd be a lot of fun. Steve was saying real quick, CJ and Richardson both with bum shoulders already. Yup, maybe they need strong shoulders, not arms.
Get in the gym.
Get in the gym. I was just going to say, get in the gym, get with the trainer, get it going, man. But so we want to do top NFL MVP candidates going into next year. So we're going to go through our list 10 through 1. All right, we're going to go backwards, obviously. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of quarterbacks on there, and rightfully so. But let's see if we mix it up a little bit. You never know what's going on. So what do you got for your number 10?
My number 10
MVP candidate.
Number 10 NFL MVP candidate. And I kind of did the odds on this too, as far as for the gambling folks out there. I got.
And I do have the odds up here from Vegas Insider if you need them.
Okay, yeah, I got number 10. And I was thinking about ranking them higher, but number 10 right now as it stands is Jared Goff at plus 2,500.
He
had 37 picks, 37 touchdowns. He had 37 picks. That's Vinny Testaverde. He had 37 touchdowns, 12 picks. 5 of them were in one game. So if you kind of prorate that out, he still had a really good season. He had 4,600 yards. The Lions offense is going to look a lot different this year because of the new coordinator. But I still think Jared Goff being a top, to me, he's still a top 5-6 quarterback in the league. But as far as MVP candidates go, I think the fact that he's in the pub, on a national scale, people still don't have respect for Jared Goff. But I got him at number 10 at plus 2,500. And yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
No doubt. Steve-O doesn't like it. Goff is not bettable in his opinion. In my opinion, I mean, he is bettable because he was having that kind of season last year for a while, but I left him off my list just because I feel like there are so many weapons over there, and they are concentrating on running the ball so much that his numbers may not be there. But again, we'll see. He's on a really good team, and again, they went 15-2 last year, so you got to give the quarterback a lot of credit. But I'm all right with that answer. I do not have him in my top 10. I'm going to shock you with my number 10 right now, and I'll explain. But it is a rookie. It is a rookie, and that rookie is Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, and I'll explain why. We haven't had a player since Deion Sanders play both sides of the ball. If Travis Hunter can somehow contribute enough and make Jacksonville a playoff team, which nobody thinks they are at all right now, and he does it from the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball, which of course is extremely hard, and he gets, I don't know, let's say 5 or 6 picks this year and scores 7 or 8 touchdowns, and Jacksonville gets in, and he's a big reason why. Travis Hunter could actually win the MVP by playing both sides of the football. I know it's really far-fetched, but I thought I might throw it in there, man, and get your opinion on it.
That's, you know what, and I was looking up some stuff, and you know, in the history of the NFL, there's only been 2 defensive players to ever win MVP. That's Alan Page and Lawrence Taylor.
Right.
Since 2012, there's only been 1 non-quarterback to win it, and that was AP in 2012. And I was going to ask you, and I was going to present this to the chat group as well. If defensive players are, you know, we've seen some outstanding defensive seasons from individuals. We've seen, you know, guys like Trayvon Diggs and Champ Bailey with, you know, double-digit interceptions. We've seen Jared Allen and Michael Strahan with, you know, over 20 sacks. We've seen some really good defensive seasons, and it's just interesting that there's not been more defensive players. You know, they'll throw them in the voting just to throw them in the voting.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that with some of the individual defensive performances that we've seen in the league, that there's only been 2 defensive players that have ever won the MVP award. That's sick in my opinion. But if anybody's got a shot to do it, it could be Travis Hunter, especially like you say, Jay, if he plays well on both sides of the ball. I'm not mad at that pick at all.
For God's sakes, a kicker has won the MVP. Mark Mosley,
come on, man.
I mean, how are you going to do that and leave out all these defensive guys? It really is amazing. I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable. Alan Page and Lawrence Taylor, the only 2 guys. I think that's pretty nuts when you think about it. So that's a good call right there. I like that. So Steve was saying he just sees Jared Goff as like a Jimmy G type with good wide receivers. And by the way, Travis Hunter is actually on the list plus 20,000. So if you want to get crazy, go ahead and throw like $20 on that thing. You can be a rich man and Travis Hunter win the MVP. Very unlikely, but possible. I put him at number 10. What do you got for number 9?
Number 9, I got Jalen Hurts at plus 1,700. Okay. It's amazing that a guy who only threw 18 touchdowns last year can even be in the MVP race. But again, chat, Jason, what is value? What is this? Because the MVP and the Heisman usually come down to stats. And it pisses me off because let's say you took Lamar Jackson off of the Ravens. They're probably still, with the talent that they have, they're probably still an 8-win, 9-win football team. You take Baker Mayfield off of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they're a 3-win football team.
Say it.
So, what is value? Why, if it's just gonna be stats, then call it that. Don't call it the most valuable player, because it's rarely the most valuable player. And you know, I think A-Rod was one of the only guys in baseball that ever won an MVP on a losing team.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, right?
No, it doesn't. But I would love to hear from everybody out there, and you especially, Jay. What is value to you? What does the most valuable player mean to you?
To me, it means if you take this guy off our team, we become basically shit for the most part. You know, like, and that's why it usually is a quarterback, and that's why I understand why they give it to quarterbacks, even though I would say, why not make it the most outstanding player award? I'm way more cool with that.
Right.
So Jalen Hurts, when you bring him up, he's not. He didn't make my list. He was really close, but at number 9, I'm cool with that. I like that right there. And the guy scores touchdowns, not just through the air, but with his legs, obviously. And the push is something that apparently only he can do. So having him out there as one of your guys, I got no problem with. At my number 9, I got
well,
Jay.
again too though, Jay, he's valuable. You take him away from the Eagles, and what are the Eagles?
No doubt.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm going kind of like some of my guys here will be stat driven, but I'm also going with guys I think that have the most value to their team.
No doubt. Jalen Hurts, listen, he's the quarterback of a team that went to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, and they won one. And they were right there with the other one with the Chiefs, the first one that they played. It was 38-35. And Jalen Hurts played remarkable in that game and would have won MVP of that one as well if the Eagles won. So the guy's a fantastic player. His value is – you really can't even measure it. And you could say the same thing for maybe another one of his teammates, and maybe we'll talk about him. I don't know, but – that's the thing. When you have other guys that are MVP caliber, then it takes away from what that other guy has or what that other guy can do. So like a Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry type same sort of thing.
Right.
Anyway.
So who's your 9?
My 9 is a guy who was plus 850. I'm not really high on him, but I put him in there because what he can do and what he does mean to this football team, and that's Jaden Daniels. 9, maybe a little bit higher than some people, or lower, I should say, than some people would have him. But that's what I'm going with because they don't have the greatest players out there. Yeah, Terry McLaurin, I love him, but Deebo Samuel's going to be like your number 2. Like, that's a little bit weird. You have a decent running game, and he is no doubt the biggest reason why Washington has turned around and became a playoff team and went to the freaking NFC Championship last year. So to me, he's got to be an MVP caliber player.
I agree. And again, it's value. You take him off of that team, and they don't make they're nowhere near the New York Giants. Basically, if you take Jaden Daniels off of the Commanders, but I like that. I'm not mad at that one at all. He's on my list a little bit higher, but I won't say love. I'm impressed with what the young guy did in his first, 25-9, 3,500 yards.
Yeah.
It just had such a command, no pun intended, of the offense. And as a Lions fan, you can't have nothing but respect for him when he comes into your place, into our place, and takes a shit on your rug.
No doubt. Hey, I would have him higher. It's just that I don't think that Washington is going to do what they did last year. I think that they are a borderline playoff team, in my opinion. And we're going to get to a lot of that as the season, approaches and goes on and stuff. But I'm not as high on Washington as I am on other teams. And Vegas even says that they're an 8.5 win team right there. So there's something in there. But all right, who's your number 8?
My number 8 is, again, this is a value-driven pick for me. At plus 1,400, I'm going with with Mr. C.J. Stroud from the Houston Texans.
I had him on my list at number 10, and I took him off for Travis Hunter, but I had him there, so I like
the Travis Hunter thing. Throws a little bit of variety into the list. 20-12, 3,700 yards, but I mean his receiving core basically died on him for most of last year. There's still, remember, Tank Dell will be back in 10 days.
Yeah,
they kept saying that. Tank Dell will be back in 10 days, and we haven't seen or heard from him
he
since.
May be ready to go this year. Hopefully he will. And they got Christian Kirk they brought in, and Nico Collins. You keep him healthy. Why can't CJ Stroud win it? Because they should blow away and win that division.
Absolutely. And their defense. I love the combination of Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. I still don't think Will Anderson has reached his full ceiling yet. I kind of got him maybe a notch. This is going to ruffle some feathers. Probably a notch below Micah Parsons with the type of player that he could be. But him and Danielle Hunter, I just love that duo. I wish we had, somebody like that in the Motor City. But my Giants are kind of slowly working towards that. But yeah, I like C.J. Stroud. Even though he's a Buckeye, I think they still had a decent season, overcoming like I say, their inconsistency and injuries in receiving core. Plus 1,400, I think there's good value there for a guy like him who's looking to have a bounce back season.
Okay, I had different odds. I had plus 2,200 on him, unless that's what it opened at. I'm not sure. No, I got like plus 2,200 on him. I don't know. It depends on where you're betting. Depends on what state you're in. In Florida, you can only bet on one freaking app. It's ridiculous. Kind of sucks. But
Really?
yeah, only one app you can bet on. It's called Hard Rock Bet. Only one. Can't bet on anything else. Yeah, it kind of blows.
Up here, the world is my oyster.
It really, I know you can. You got everything. Yo, you just mentioned the guy, and you talked about no defensive players have won it. There's only been two, Alan Page and Lawrence Taylor. But I feel like if any defensive player can win it, it is Micah Parsons, the guy you mentioned, and he is my number 8. I think if Dallas has that kind of year, and they can, I'm not saying they will, I don't know. But Dallas does have weapons now. If they have a huge year and they step up defensively, and Micah Parsons is the reason why, and he's got 15 to 18 sacks, and he's causing fumbles, and he's getting in the end zone and doing whatever he's doing, I think that Micah Parsons has a really good chance of being the MVP. Will it happen? Likely not. But if it's going to be a defensive player, I think it's him, and that's why he comes in at number 8 for me.
I can't argue with that. I kind of like that. And he's a Cowboy. So as anxious as they are, everybody sits around and just hopes, oh my God, kind of like Alabama before they kind of fell off. It's like, all right, this guy goes to Alabama, so he's instantly a favorite. He's instantly high profile. And, by Micah Parsons being a Dallas Cowboy, he goes out, has, 13, 15. He doesn't even have to be the sack leader in the NFL, in my opinion. I think if Dallas plays well, like you said, and does what some people like Kenny, our other partner, Kenny 49ers, thinks that they're going to be this year. I could easily see him maybe not winning it, but I could see him getting maybe top 4 or 5 votes, which would be, a huge step for a guy. And, that's just one more thing he can use for fuel for his contract renewal.
If Kenny was doing this with us, I guarantee you he would have all quarterbacks. All 10 would be quarterbacks. He's that practical about it that he says, no, it's going to be a quarterback that wins it, so why wouldn't it be all 10? I can totally see him saying that, man. Totally see it. All right, my number 7 is a guy who people think may be done, but he's nowhere near done. He's still got plenty left on him, even though he's had his injuries and everything. And if you're going to give it to a running back, there's only a few guys I can think of, but one guy is a guy who should have won it 2 years ago. That's Christian McCaffrey. Now, if the 49ers are going to go anywhere, Christian McCaffrey is going to be the guy. It's not. I'm sorry. Brock Purdy is not going to be our number 1. Take us to the promised land. It's going to. That's
a value-driven pick, in my opinion.
It is. There's no doubt about it. Again, running backs. Adrian Peterson, the last one, winning in 2012. Before that, do you know who it was? Before Adrian Peterson? The last running back to win?
Yep, 2012. He had 2,097 yards.
But who won it before him? Do you know that? The last running back to win it before him?
Before him? I don't know. That's a good question.
It is. It's a good question. LaDainian Tomlinson.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot out there. But he had, I think that was the year that he had 31 touchdowns overall, 28 on the ground or whatever it was. Yeah. Crazy stuff, man. Yeah, so, so I'm going with Christian McCaffrey. My number 7, again, not likely it's going to a running back. He is 28 years old, which you guys think may be really, really old, but it's not. He can still get a lot of stuff done. So I think that if the 49ers go anywhere, it's going to be CMC's. He's going to be the reason why, so that's why I put him up there as an MVP candidate for this year.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. So my number 7 is probably a shocker, but he's plus 1,200. And I thought the odds might be a little longer on this guy, but there's opportunities there if he has a really good season. He had 25 touchdowns, 11 picks last year, threw for 3,700 yards. That's Jordan Love.
Okay.
Jordan Love for the Packers. I think in that division, and this is strictly based on like the what if, if the Packers win that division, if the Packers go on to win, 12, 13 games, which they probably won't, but if he has a really good season and he gets out of that division, the way that division's shaping up to be and the way that you and I and Kenny think it's going to be, he comes out of there alive. I think they'll start talking MVP. Plus he's a Packer. So that adds a little cachet as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not totally convinced that he will, that the Packers will win, 11, 12 games right now as it stands. I'm still concerned. I still have concerns about their wide receiver. They did pick up Matthew Golden, but they got a lot of names in the receiving room, but not a lot of really good, a lot
Not
of good
great
talent.
names.
So, but Jordan Love is a guy that I think, at plus 1,200, I think could be a sneaky MVP candidate as the season goes on. But then all that could be lost in the sauce by week 7. So what do I know?
Well, look, it makes a lot of sense that Jordan Love would be in there, and Steve-O putting out plus 3,000. He's getting 2,100 for Purdy. There's some different lines going on there, but I like him as an MVP candidate. I understand it. I didn't put him in there because I'm not a believer in Jordan Love, but he would be the guy to win an MVP on that team because you don't have any other standout wide receivers. You're not going to give it to Josh Jacobs. And going into 2 years ago, he finished the season with 18 touchdowns, 1 pick. So going into last year, a lot of people thought that he would be an MVP candidate. He wasn't. He got hurt. He missed a few games. Then, he had his problems with interceptions and whatnot. But if he can clean it up, I have no problem with that, man. He can be in there. I just didn't put him in there. My next guy at number 6 is another Dallas Cowboy, bro. It's Dak Prescott. You got George Pickens now. All right, you got CeeDee Lamb. You got Jake Ferguson out there. Say what you will. If you can put together some kind of running game by opening it up and having defenses have to play, a cover 2 type of thing, and where you cover it doing a shell and whatnot, so you can open it up for the running back in other different ways. I think Dak Prescott can have a really good season this year. I'm not saying that Dallas is going to be all-out great team, but I think that they're definitely a playoff type of team. Where in the playoffs, I'm not exactly sure. Some people think they're going to win the division this year, but Dak Prescott, to me, has a really good chance at winning MVP this year. Let me check his odds that I got over here real quick. Dak Prescott is plus 3,300. That's
crazy. But that's crazy considering all of the logic that you just presented. And you got guys like, some of the guys like Jordan Love at like plus 1,200, and then Dak Prescott's plus 3,300. That's that's kind of bass Ackward logic there. But I'm with you in lockstep on that one. You know what? It was 2 years ago. Dak Prescott was prime MVP candidate.
Yeah,
he actually didn't have a bad season last year. People just hate him because he's Dak and he plays with the Cowboys. But if if you're objective about it, Dak Prescott he's still a good quarterback, whether you want to like him because he's a Cowboy. Because if he was a Raider putting up the numbers that he put up, people would be all over him. They'd love him to death, and they just dislike him because he's a freaking Cowboy. Mm-hmm. And I can't like him because I'm a Giants fan, but I understand that Dak Prescott's still a really good quarterback, and I would not be shocked at all with the receiving core, like you say, Ferguson, and the defense that they have. I can see him putting up 4,800 yards. I can see him putting up 35 touchdowns, 6 picks. Right. I can easily see him having a season like that.
It can happen. Damian Lee, funny over here. Things I don't believe in. The Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, and the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, they haven't shown anything in a long time, man.
Wait. He's telling me there's no Easter Bunny? Stop, Damian.
Man, I had lunch with Santa Claus the other day. Everything is cool, man. He's bringing the presents again this year. It's all right.
Where are we at? My number 6?
What are we at?
My number 6 is a safe pick for me at number 6. I put him middle of the pack because I still think he's got something to prove, and I still think they need a little bit of improvement in their wide receiver room. That's Justin Herbert.
Okay.
But the guy 23-3 last year, 3,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, 3 picks. Wow. A lot of people don't realize how good of a decision maker that he is. And I think that a lot of that comes from I think a lot of that comes from being an Oregon quarterback, where you
love them Oregon quarterbacks.
I do, man. You got to make those quick decisions, quick reads. And Justin Herbert, under the tutelage of Mr. Jim Harbaugh, in their first year together, I could easily see him being an MVP candidate, maybe not winning it, but at plus 1,000, I think I look for a step up for him, but I need a little bit more from their wide receiver room before I'm ready to just totally go out on that limb.
You see, now here's the pushback I'll give you on that. Even though I love Justin Herbert and he's big time, there's no doubt, and he just gave his numbers 23-3. he's not going to have 38-6.
No, I don't think he's ever going to do that.
Yeah, Harbaugh's not going to allow that to happen.
No.
So Herbert's going to have to make some big plays on his own, meaning like 50-yard bombs for touchdowns and stuff like that in order to get his stats really up there, because they're bringing Omarion Hampton, Najee Harris, so they're going to run the ball. But then again, that can open up a lot of things, play action for guys like Vlad McConkey and Trey Harris, who is over there now. Quentin Johnson, we'll see what they got with him. But they have a much better team, man. Chargers, I am really high on this year, bro. So Justin Herbert can be an MVP candidate, because if you're the quarterback of the team that could potentially have the best record in the AFC, that puts your name in there. So I'm fine with that.
Especially if they're able to overtake the Chiefs. If they, I'm telling you, I'm itching right now for the season to start. Anyway, let me move on to my number. Where we at? Number 5.
5. Yep.
And my number 5 was your number 9, and that's actually Jaden Daniels. At the plus 850, 25-9, 3,500 yards in his rookie season, in a tough division. And like I say, his stamp for me was going into Ford Field and doing what he did against the Lions, who was a prohibitive favorite. That game made me nervous going in when they were doing all the picks and prognostications and whatnot. I was a little nervous about that because the Lions especially, though, have issues with mobile quarterbacks. And his running ability set up the running ability. Who was their running back? I forgot who their running back was. But every time I turn around, man, this guy was ripping off 8-9 yards a shot. And it just, early on, I got a really bad feeling in that game. And it turned out that my bad feeling was right. But Jaden Daniels, I do think maybe overall, Jay, I agree with you a little bit. They may take a step backwards. But I still, if they don't, this is a strictly if they don't, and if they maintain close to what they did last year, I could see Jaden Daniels being an MVP candidate. But if they all of a sudden just tank it and win 7 games, then this is absolutely not going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. I like it. I like what we're going on over here. We have a lot of different guys on our list so far, but I have a feeling we're going to start to get into a lot of the same guys coming up real soon over here. There are a few quarterbacks not mentioned yet, but before I get to a quarterback, my number 5 is a guy who could have won it last year. Now that what he did last year, over the 2,000 yards, let's say he does it again. You don't give him the MVP, then you're out of your damn mind. Saquon Barkley is my number 5, and he is my last non-quarterback. I'll tell you that right now. So I got Saquon Barkley there at number 5, and it's because of what he did last year. Mm-hmm. Last year, again, the 2,005 yards. Could have maybe even broke the record if he played in the last game, but decided not to, sparing your New York Giants, I should say, not his anymore.
I would have loved that, actually.
He is that good. If he stays healthy again and breaks the Madden curse, because, he is on Madden jumping backwards, so let's hope that doesn't fuck everything up.
Right.
Saquon, yes, because of what he did last year, now they're going to have to look at it more closer this year and say, you know what, maybe he is the MVP. Almost like what happened with Josh Allen. I know it's not the same for running backs, but it's like Josh Allen almost got it as like a reward for the past 5 years of his playing.
Right, it was like a lifetime achievement
award.
Yeah,
lifetime achievement, yeah.
But I can roll with that. I'm a huge Saquon fan. I was kind of hoping secretly that he would play that last game and break the record against the Giants. Just that whole thing would have come full circle, and that would have been the ultimate FU to the Giants organization.
Do you think that maybe because he's such an NFL purist that the fact that he did it in 16 games was good enough for him to be like, I'm legitimately in the 2,000-yard club because I did it in 16 games, not 17?
That's a good question. I would say yes, but I'm not. I think the games are the games, man. I think, I'm not real big on separating, 60 games from 82 games, 150 games or 162 games for baseball. You play the schedule, and I think it's better perception overall, from a lot of NFL purists that he was, he did it in 16 games. But to me, had it took him 17 games to do it, I wouldn't have died on. I would have listened to the debates and the counterpoints, but it wouldn't have. I wouldn't have died on that hill.
Yeah.
I'm such a Saquon fan that I was just happy he did it. If it took him 19 games to do it, it didn't matter to me. But I do like him. That's your number 5, you said?
That is my number 5. Yep, my number 5.
Wow.
So we're up to your 4 now. As
number 4,
Evo's talking about your guy real quick. St. Brown is plus 50,000.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
He's probably not going to win it, but if you want to put $5 on it, go for it. Why not?
I'm telling you, why not? Put a couple chips on it. My number 4 is actually tied for number 4. I got Saquon and Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. I dig it.
I got Saquon for all the reasons we just listed. I got Patrick Mahomes because he's, like him or not, he's still, matter of public opinion, he's still the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
Until somebody can really slay the Chiefs for good. He had a bad game in the Super Bowl. The Eagles, I think, figured something out. You just send everybody and somebody's going to get to him.
Yep.
But
it was just like the Tampa Super Bowl, and he didn't have an offensive line, and Tampa's defensive line crushed him, and that's exactly what happened in the Philly game.
Yep, and exactly, but I still think Patrick Mahomes, even though 26-11, 3,900 yards, not a typical Patrick Mahomes season by any stretch. I still think, outside of Lamar Jackson, he still might be the most dangerous quarterback in the league when you're talking about playing off script. And that includes maybe being ahead a little bit of Josh Allen. It just comes naturally to him. It's a backwards pass or a left-handed pass, or, you're sitting there watching the game. All right, they got him. And he just makes a little scoop. Next thing you know, he's scrambling. It's so frustrating, but it's beautiful to watch, especially if you're a Kansas City fan. And I got a lot of respect for
quarterback in the game. There's no question. You can argue other guys all you want, but Patrick Mahomes goes to the Super Bowl year in and year out. Has he won every one of them? No. But neither did Tom Brady. And I'm not comparing him exactly yet to Tom Brady. I'm not there. Patrick Mahomes has a long career ahead of him, but he's an NFL MVP candidate year in and year out. No doubt about it. So he's certainly on my list, but I'm not going to get to him yet. I'm going with Joe Burrow at number 4. What he did last year, here's the thing. He had that great, unbelievable statistical year. It was unreal, but they didn't make the playoffs. So my fear is, what if they don't make the playoffs again? That's why I even thought about putting him a little bit lower than number 4, like at number 7 or 8, because I'm not sure that Cincinnati is going to take away a spot from one of these teams. Again, Pittsburgh may fall out, Denver may fall out, but I'm not sure that the Bengals. I'm sorry, not the Bengals. Who was I just talking about? That the Bengals are going to be necessarily that team that jumps in there. It could be other teams, and we're not going to go through them all right now. But Joe Burrow would be higher on my list because he's throwing to Jamar Chase. He's throwing to T. Higgins. He's going to throw for probably almost 5,000 yards, 40-plus touchdowns, everything, all that stuff. I totally get it. But I'm worried if they don't make the playoffs, he's not going to have a chance to win MVP because other guys out there are going to put up crazy numbers as well. And if they're on winning teams, he won't have a shot.
And the insane thing about that is that when you kind of dig a little deeper statistically, when you look at the season that Joe Burrow had, when you start looking at the team overall, there was they're like the only team in history that scored like 40 points on 3-4 different occasions and lost 2 of those games.
Crazy.
He's he's the only quarterback to throw for 40 touchdowns and 4,500 yards or more and not make the playoffs. There's a lot of things going on in Cincinnati right now that would prevent him from going to the playoffs. But I think just by the law of averages, I think the Bengals will get better. I think they'll maybe not get better as far as personnel wise. I think they'll just play better. I think if, at least for me, if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm getting every guy every day that I possibly can in that film room. We're going to go after we're going to look at every single play. We're going to look at whatever the hell we did wrong, because there was a few plays here or there that actually stopped them from being a 10 or 11 win team. So as disastrous as it was statistically on defense for them, they were probably a couple plays away here or there from actually being an 11 win team and making the playoffs. So, but yeah, I like Joe Burrow. We'll see if T. Higgins is worth all that money. That's going to be the biggest question.
Yeah. And again, there's only so much Trey Hendrickson could do on defense. He's a one-man show basically over there. And Shamar Stewart, not good things we're hearing already. Hadn't even shown up to camp yet, for the OTAs and stuff. And that was their first overall draft pick. So, yeah, I'm just a little worried about that team right there right now. That defense, I just don't know. But again, Joe Burrow has all the capabilities of winning the MVP. He showed it last year. If they were a playoff team, he probably would have won.
Exactly. So, and which brings me to my number 3, which is Joe Burrow.
There you go.
So for all the reasons we just stated, for all the reasons we just stated, I do think though that people need to pump the brakes when they're talking about like overall greatness, because he's 1-2 or 1-3 or something like that. And they're okay in the playoffs when they get there, but the thing I think is going to stop him and damage his legacy over the next couple of years if he doesn't make up for last year. And I mean, the guy did everything that he could. I mean, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, almost 5,000 yards. I don't know what more he could have done. And I don't know what more he can do this year to top what he did last year. I think a lot of it last year statistically was because he had to, because his defense was so bad. So what you're hoping is his stats go down and the win total goes up a little bit, which I think it will. I think he'll throw for 4,200 yards, maybe 36, 37 touchdowns. And I think they win 11 games and make the playoffs. But at plus 700, I'll take that all day long.
You know whose career Joe Burrow reminds me of so far? That's Dan Marino. I mean, again, not hurt, but putting up the crazy numbers and everything. Got to a Super Bowl, lost it early in his career, second year, both in their careers. They both got to a Super Bowl. So very similar dynamics over there. And you don't want to be Dan Marino. You don't want to be known as the best quarterback to ever not win a Super Bowl. You don't want that model. You just don't want
Charles Barkley.
Yeah, right. Yeah, best player to not win an NBA championship. You don't want that stuff. All right, my number 3, you mentioned him already, Patrick Mahomes. I know you had him in a tie with Saquon, and I got no freaking problem with that. But Mahomes, to me, every year has got to be in there. You're getting Rashee Rice back this year. You hope that Travis Kelce can have a bounce-back year. See what you got at running back with Pacheco and Hunt. Is they going to keep that going? But they got the weapons. Xavier Worthy, again, Hollywood Brown. So you got guys out there, and Mahomes is able to make magic with less type of players. But now he's got really good players. And he's going to spread it around. So no one player over there is going to take over necessarily and take the shine away from him. It's going to be Mahomes. And he's going to have a really big year, in my opinion, this year. That's why I put him all the way up at number 3, because I do believe that despite me saying that Kansas City maybe overall as a team may take a step back and not be the number 1 overall in the conference this year, there's still going to be a double-digit win team.
Absolutely.
And Mahomes is still going to be a fantastic quarterback. So that's why I got him at number 3, man. That guy is the best quarterback we got going in the game right now. You can debate that Lamar Jackson is harder to prepare for. I'm fine with that. No doubt. I get it. But Mahomes is the best quarterback in the game.
And again, Patrick Mahomes to me is the rarity of value and statistics. Because you take away Patrick Mahomes, especially last year when they had the, Kelce had the down year. The receiving core wasn't, what we expected. That's probably not a double-digit win football team without Patrick Mahomes.
Of course not.
Patrick Mahomes is good for just, 4 or 5 wins if you start digging into the analytics.
Yeah.
He's probably good for 4 or 5 wins on his own. And how many games did they win last year on the last drive or late in the game? And a lot of it was because of him.
Clutch. He's got the clutch gene. He does not mess up. When it is time, it's all on the line. You can count on Mahomes getting it done. I mean, you just go back to the Super Bowl, not last year, but a couple of years ago against the 49ers. Oh, we got the ball in overtime, and all we got to do is score a touchdown? No problem. March right down the field. Easy freaking peasy, man. No problem at all. When it is on the line, you can rely on Patrick Mahomes to get it done.
Yep, and a lot of people say, well, he's one thing I hate, and this, and I hate when people say system this, system that. Every player in the NFL is a system player. Every player in the NFL is a system player.
And if we're talking about a non-system player, Patrick Mahomes is that. The guy throws the ball behind his back, for God's sake.
Exactly, and he does it with, I think their offense this year, now that you mention the names, kind of remind me of the Lions offense a little bit. You know, you got the, you know, with the two-headed monster running game, you got, a really good receiver, really great receiver, and then you got a couple of good ones. You got a really good tight end. I think Kansas City's defense really carried them a lot last year too, and I think their defense doesn't get enough shine.
Hey, look, let's call it what it was. Kansas City did not have a good offensive year last year. They did not score more than 30 points in a single game in the regular season. They did not.
Crazy when you think of an Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes team. But yeah, I got no problem with Mahomes being at number 3. Number 1 and 2 are probably going to be obvious. So when I say my number 2, we'll probably know who number 1 is.
Yep.
Number 2 was last year's MVP. Buffalo Bills plus 500.
So let's just say we agree. We agree because I have him at number 2 also.
Yeah, Josh Allen. To me, you talk about how dangerous and unpredictable Mahomes can be. You talk about how difficult it is to prepare for Lamar Jackson. But to be 6'5", 6'6", and just a big, it's like a 6'6" running back. He would have done well like back in the old days when they ran like the wing tee and all that other shit back in the day. Josh Allen, to me, he's a competitor. But I do think, and we talked about this on previous shows, this is a put up or shut up year for him and Lamar Jackson. One of these guys got to break through and win a Super Bowl.
Oh man,
you got to win.
Not now win. I mean, you got to do it. It's not like Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere.
No,
you have to beat the beast.
And you're going to be the 3 of you are going to be around probably the for the next 6-7 years at least. So you're going to be competing against each other. One of those 2 guys have to break through and you know take the throne from Patrick Mahomes. And I think Lamar may have the better roster. He has the better chance. But if there's a guy that's able to will his team, and let's face it, that loss last year was not his fault, in my opinion.
No, it wasn't. I mean, look, he scored 29 points in that game last year. So, and they were right there, the 4th and 1. Josh Allen is definitely an MVP candidate again this year. You feel like he's not going to win back-to-back. They don't really like doing that, apparently. They don't do back-to-back MVPs much anymore. No. But if a guy can do it, it is him. And when you think about Josh Allen, it's not just his arm, and he can run the ball all over the place. I mean, he is not as effective necessarily as Lamar Jackson, but he gets the job done just a little bit differently. He's more lugging along, and he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's almost impossible to tackle. And the guy don't get hurt.
And that's another thing. That's another thing I think he has going in his favor. I think he somebody upstairs, the football gods know that he can't get hurt. Because you talk about a guy who's a mix of value and statistics. You take Josh Allen off of that Buffalo Bills
team,
and it's toast. It's toast. Sean McDermott.
That's what, when we talk about what an MVP is, that's what an MVP is. You take Josh Allen off the Buffalo Bills, God knows if they win more than 2 games.
I was going to say that, but I didn't know if I wanted to go that low.
But that's how valuable he is, man. So I am with you on Josh Allen. I'm only putting him at 2 because, again, back-to-back is hard, and that's why Lamar Jackson is number 1 for me. Look, we can sit here all day. He is the hardest player in NFL history to prepare for on the offensive side of the football. It is a nightmare because he can turn any play into a 50-yard run for a touchdown. It's just unreal what this guy does. He could have won the MVP last year. He's got, 2 already, right?
Yep.
2 MVPs.
Oh, he's got. Is he 3-time?
No, he would have won his third last year.
Yeah.
That was up for debate. And if he would have won, you know what, man, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. The one that he won the year before, that's when Christian McCaffrey should have won it, in my opinion.
Right. I agree.
But whatever. What's done is done. But Lamar is a perennial MVP player. Nobody can do what he can do on the football field. Michael Vick was the one who really started this madness, and Michael Vick is nowhere near as effective as Lamar Jackson is as far as a runner and a passer on the football field. That's how great Lamar Jackson is. He's first ballot Canton all the way.
Well, you know how I feel about Lamar Jackson. But to me, my Lamar Jackson disdain, I won't say disdain, that's a strong word. My dislike for him comes up for as great as he is, and for all the things that you just mentioned, how he craps the bed in the playoffs, which is one of the things I hate most about that other guy that we talked about at the beginning of the show, who hasn't been to the Super Bowl in 14 years, but everybody talks about how great he is. He irritates the shit out of me. But anyway, until Lamar gets to a Super Bowl, I'm gonna feel the same way that I feel. I can't deny his statistics. Can't deny his ability. Can't deny how difficult, defensive coordinators have to prepare for him. But he's got to stop being the reason that the Baltimore Ravens are losing these playoff games. Now, I know the Mark Andrews drop didn't help, but he had 2 turnovers in that game. He turned the ball over a couple in their playoff game, their playoff loss the year before. And you don't want this to become your thing. You don't want to be known as what Peyton Manning was before he started winning the Super Bowl. You're a great regular season quarterback, great MVP, but you can't win a big one. So, in my opinion, if I had a gun to my head, you say who's got to win one first, it'd be Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson. That's why he's my number one, man. He is just up there.
And he's my number one too, by the way.
And Derrick Henry, neither one of us had him on the list because I think at this point now he still is great. And we talk about durability. He's been there for every game of his career. The guy does not miss games. He is unbelievable, and he's going to be a big part of why Lamar Jackson would win an MVP because he frees him up to do so many other things. But he's just that guy again, where again it is so hard to prepare for that man to play football. Love watching it. Baltimore is one of those teams that got way up there. I was thinking about my Super Bowl prediction, and I'm not ready to make it yet, but I was thinking about an all LA Super Bowl, man. That was going through my head. Like, Stafford doesn't get enough love, and now that Devontae Adams is there with Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams,
I'm telling you,
out, bro. And then on the other side, the Chargers. They got all this ammo now. We talked. All right, it may not be the best wide receiving core, but Lad McConkey put him up there like in the top 10, top 15 players.
Just by himself.
By himself. We'll see what Trey Harris is. Here we got Marion Hampton, Najee Harris, Justin Herbert, who did not turn the ball over like you mentioned last year. You have him like number 6 on your list?
Yep, he was number 6 on my list. He had 23 and 3 last year.
Yeah, I mean, we know that he can throw more touchdowns if Jim Harbaugh would allow him to. He's plus. I got him plus 1,800 on the Vegas Insider. I don't know what you.
I got him plus 1,000 where I'm at. Okay,
I don't know why it's so different.
That's a huge, but that whole Dak plus 3,300 that throws me for a loop. Considering the guys I have on my list that are shorter odds, and then Dak Prescott is plus 30. But I think that might just be the hate that particular site has for the Cowboys.
Maybe so, yeah. Well, Dak Prescott, out of everybody on my list, he would be my most sneaky guy for MVP this year. I may even throw a few dollars on it, but let me give you my 10 through 1 again. Travis Hunter came in at number 10. Why? Because if he can help the Jacksonville Jaguars get to the playoffs by playing on both sides of the ball and being effective on both sides of the ball, you got to throw his name in there. So maybe even just for a little bit of fun. Yep. Jaden Daniels at number 9. Micah Parsons, only defensive guy, at number 8. 7 is Christian McCaffrey. He's only 28 years old, guys. He's not done. If the 49ers are going anywhere, he's going to be a big part of it. Dak Prescott, my sneaky guy in there at number 6. Saquon, if he does what he did last year, at number 5, he can win it. Then my quarterbacks, Joe Burrow at 4. Patrick Mahomes, best in the league, number 3. Josh Allen won it last year, number 2. And Lamar Jackson going for his 3rd. I got him at number 1. Prime, what was yours again?
At number 10, I had my hometown guy, Jared Goff. Number 9, I had Jalen Hurts. Number 8, C.J. Stroud. Number 7, I had Jordan Love. I'll probably get shot for that one. Number 6, I had Justin Herbert. 5, I had Jaden Daniels. Number 4, I had a tie for Saquon and Patrick Mahomes. Number 3, I had Joe Burrow. Number 2, I had the big fella Josh Allen. And number 1, I had the league's most dangerous weapon, Mr. Lamar Jackson. For the
that is what he is, man. That is what he is. All
they
right,
should call lethal weapon. That's lethal weapon right there. Can't do it because it's a trademark violation, but that's what he is, man.
I do love Action Jackson. That's
there you go.
It's just so good. But yeah, you can come up with a whole bunch of nicknames for this guy. He is freaking unbelievable, Lamar, just unreal, and he seems to be getting better, which is really, really scary, man. Because he's really young. He's got a lot of football left, and again, he's doing a great job of keeping himself healthy. That's the part of his game which I think goes overlooked, that he's able to stay on the field for the most part. Yeah, he's got banged up here and there throughout his career, but he stayed on the field all year last year. And I mean, damn, they played a good game against Buffalo, but they just couldn't beat them. The Bills got them last year. And again, Baltimore not able to advance. So you're right. He's got to step up his game, no question. So we'll see if Lamar can do it this year. We got a lot more to talk about next week, but anything else before we get out of here, Prime?
Well, hey, I got a couple of questions real quick. I just wanted to go over, we talked with Cleveland Browns for whatever reason are in the news a lot lately. And they right now they got 5 quarterbacks in camp. And they got Flacco, they got Pickett, they got Shador, they got Dylan Gabriel, and they got Deshaun Watson, who probably will never play another down for them again. If you're a team like the Detroit Lions, who are going through a little bit of a change on their offensive line, they're going to start Christian Mahogany, who's a young guy. They're going to start Tate Rutledge, who they picked this year in the draft. Frank Ragnow, their all-pro center, is retiring. So their offensive line could be, their running game could suffer, and their offensive line could be not as great as it's been in previous years. Do you think if you're Brad Holmes for the Lions, would you kind of at least make that phone call and maybe make a trade, or wait for them to cut Kenny Pickett and maybe swoop him up? Does Kenny Pickett is he even an option if you're a Detroit Lions? You got Hendon Hooker right now as a backup quarterback. You're not going to play him. And I think, and the Lions, bless their hearts, they're one Jared Goff injury away from being the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that Kenny Pickett's going to come in and be the savior. That's the thing. Like, you can bring him in, and I think that he could be a viable backup quarterback and not turn the ball over. I mean, you would need to have a good running game, which the Lions do have in order for things to work out, in my opinion. So it probably could work there. And that's one of very few places that it could work out for a guy like that. So I would say Kenny Pickett to the Lions. You need a backup in case anything happens to Goff. Maybe you can make it work there. The thing that I don't like is that there's no more Ben Johnson around. I feel a lot more comfortable bringing in another quarterback. So it's kind of tough. But, yeah, you kind of do need somebody. I don't know where else you look, though, because backup quarterbacks, man, they are not a dime a dozen in this league. They're hard to find.
So, yeah, I agree with that. If John Morton, their new offensive coordinator, it's going to be very interesting. He's got a lot of Dan Campbell characteristics. So, like I say, the offense itself is not going to, people, oh my God, the offense itself is not going to change. It's the play calling. It's the sequencing that's going to change. And when Ben Johnson gets on a roll, he's better than a lot of guys we've seen over the last decade. So, real quick, just before I go on to my next big question, why is Carson Wentz still not signed by anybody? Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me, actually, because I'm surprised he got as many times on the merry-go-round as he actually did. I mean, for God's sakes, he ended up at the Chiefs last year. He was on the 49ers. He was on the Colts, the Eagles. I mean, just keep naming teams. The Rams, I think wasn't he on the Rams for like 5 seconds?
I think so. I think
right?
So.
Something like, I mean, it's crazy. This guy.
What happened there, Jay? What happened?
I don't know, man. He seemed like he was going to soar. He was having the MVP career back in 2017 when they won that Super Bowl, and everything just fell apart. He lost his job to Jalen Hurts, and then la-di-da-di-da. It's all been, downhill since then. I cannot believe the fall that guy had. I thought that he had a lot of gifts. I thought he was going to be a really good player, but at every stop he went to after Philadelphia, he really shit the bed. He did not do a good job. So
could have been like a psychological thing, man. He probably just, like you say, he lost his job to Hurts, and it was like, maybe he can't even. Maybe it's like a subconscious thing. He just mentally just didn't have it anymore. And he's, like you say, he's tried for 76 other teams, but it's just, he's running out of options. And I'm a little bit surprised that at least somebody didn't kick the tires on him. But the fact that he's still sitting out there, it's little bit. It's not shocking. It's just a little bit surprising that somebody's not at least calling.
I'll give you that. It may be a little bit surprising that he's still out there, because you would think that he can come in and at least back up, or at least maybe a third string at worst, something like that. So I do get that, but maybe it's because could he possibly be selfish enough to ask for like $5 million a year, which he's not get? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe he thinks he's worth more than what he is, but you're not, buddy.
Probably. If so, my next question, and I touched on this a little bit last week, I feel the answer could be yes Do you think Kirk Cousins plays another down for the Atlanta Falcons?
I mean, the only case would be if Michael Penix got hurt. He gets hurt week 1 in the second half or something like that. Yeah, in comes Kirk Cousins, and he'll be happy to play and start for that team all year long. That is the only way he plays for Atlanta. Michael Penix won't lose his job due to playing bad. They invested too much in him already to give up in 1 year. And last year, he only had a few games, whatever it was, a half a season or whatever he got in. Not even a half a season. So, Penix, I don't know if I believe in him necessarily. I haven't really seen anything at him to make me say, wow, this guy's really got it. But you're not going to go ahead and trash what you think that he could be for Kirk Cousins. So, again, only way he plays for Atlanta is if he gets hurt.
All right. And the last question, this is something that I saw on a website. I'm not going to plug them and give them any credit, but an interesting trade scenario. Trey Hendrickson, we've talked about, has been in one of the darling teams that everybody keeps putting him on is the Detroit Lions. So here's a trade proposal. 2026 second, 2027 third, and a 2028 fourth for Trey Hendrickson. You got $40 million in cap space if you're the Detroit Lions. If you're Detroit, do you make the call? And if you're Cincinnati, do you pick up the phone?
If it was a second, a third, and a fourth in 3 separate years, maybe that's the part that gets me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because maybe if you condense it a little bit more, maybe give out, if you can't get a 1 for him, and I would probably understand that a 30-year-old defensive end, maybe you don't get a 1 for anymore. But if you can go out, if you would put like a package for a 2 and a 3 together, I would think that'd be worth it to bring Trey Hendrickson over and not necessarily have to spread it out. I think the Lions could sacrifice a half of it, not a half of a draft, but part of their draft coming up in order to get a player like that. It'd be worth it.
I think so too, especially with their Super Bowl window, being contested the way it is, because I do think you and I and Kenny think the division's going to get a lot better. You're real high on the Vikings. I'm real high on the Bears, and we're both kind of meh on the Packers.
Right.
But everybody, we still sing the praises of Philadelphia. If you had Trey Hendrickson on one side and Aiden Hutchinson on the other side, and Aleem McNeil in the middle with DJ Reader, and I mean, come on, man, that's probably one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. I don't think it would take the $40 million that it took for Myles Garrett. I don't think it would take $40 million to sign Trey Hendrickson. And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't think Cincinnati wants to trade him. And I don't think Trey Hendrickson wants to be traded. I think this is all like a smokescreen. He just wants to get paid. He wants some security, wants some guarantees. But I would love to see Trey Hendrickson on one side and Aiden on the other side, man. That would be something to see. And that might be enough to, put the Lions in, to kind of put the to where things like that happened in the playoffs last year wouldn't happen.
That would bump them up. There's no doubt. If they had a guy like Trey Hendrickson, where it's going to be harder to double team because you have Aiden Hutchinson on the other side, and you can even move him around the line and do things like that with stunts and stuff. Wow, I mean, it would be disastrous for other teams. There's no doubt. You would be adding a major piece, a major player to a major team that's already right there, that's looking for really that one extra guy to put him over the hump. I think that Trey Hendrickson really would be it, because they're going to score. Detroit's going to score points, man. They are. But how many points are they going to let up? That's the problem. You need another pass rusher in there, no doubt. If not that, you got to get better in the secondary.
Yeah, and they've signed 97 guys in the secondary over the last 3 years. Yeah. So
they only played out 4 or
5. Right. But yeah, I agree with that. And I think that you give them 3 years, $100 million. I think that would be enough to get them. 4th year option type thing, maybe. Everybody talks about salary cap. You and I both know, doing this a long time, knowing what we know about football, that the salary cap number is fictitious. You can make it work. That's all. You got to sign Hutchinson down the line. Okay, well, by the time 2 years from now, we got to sign Aiden. The salary cap's probably going to go up about another $30 million between the end of next season and the time it is that you got to sign them. This is the downside, though, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but this is the downside of having really good drafts, because now all these guys, you 3-4 guys out of every draft for the last 3 years, the Lions are going to have to pay these guys in some way, shape, or form. You already got Alex Anzalone sitting out because he wants more money. You've lost Frank Ragnow for health reasons, but he was last 2 years of his contract weren't guaranteed, so there may have been a little bit of issue there. So now you bring up Aiden, you extended Kirby Joseph, you got Brian Branch coming up, you got all these other guys, Laporta, St. Brown, you got all these other guys coming up for contracts because you have really good drafts. Now I think you need to take that one final swing, that Aaron Judge at Trey Hendrickson, put your team over the top, and if you go out there and make the offer, Cincinnati turns you down, at least you can say you tried.
Yeah, you know what? There you go. At least you can say you tried. That's all there is to it. And you know what? If not Trey Hendrickson, try to find somebody else. There are other players out there, and you never know. If you make the right offer, players become available that you wouldn't think were available. So,
exactly.
You know what? Go out there and swing. Absolutely. I agree with you. That's something that they should be doing. Well, look, I do like the Lions a lot, not just because of you. I've had a best friend for the longest time that is a huge Lion fan, and I've always had a soft spot for them because they were never able to get there, never even got to a Super Bowl. So, yeah, if the 49ers aren't doing good, you can bet I'll be rooting for you, brother.
Yeah, I can't wait to this season, man. I'm looking forward. This is, like I say, this is one of the seasons I'm looking forward to. And probably more so than any in like the last 4 or 5 years.
No doubt.
I'm really, really itching for this season to get started. Plus, it'll be my first dive back into fantasy football, thanks to you guys in a few years. So
there you go.
I'm really looking forward to that too.
That's a lot of fun. Put some moolah on the line, baby. Definitely going to make it interesting, no doubt.
Spicy.
Well, hey, look, we had no idea this time last week what next week's show was going to be, but we came up with NFL MVP candidates, and we had some news, luckily, to get to with Aaron Rodgers going to the Steelers and whatnot. Anthony Richardson not going to be playing. We went over some QB salaries. Next week, I promise we're going to have a show for you, but we don't know what it is yet. But we'll figure it out. And Kenny Pickens will be back, a.k.a. Kenny the Smartass, a.k.a. Kenny 49ers, a.k.a. Kenny Colt will be back with us next week. So, everybody, thank you very much. We appreciate all of you in there. I can't go through everybody. Damien, Steve-O, McNiner was in here. I forget. Alex dropped by. I can't go through everybody. But, guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate everybody.
Well, we can't do the show without you. Tyler McGurk was in here a little bit earlier. So, thank you all. Really appreciate it. Power 32. We're out for now. We'll be back next week. Peace.
Peace.